Welcome to the Green Kitchen. It's a show that celebrates the link between nature, nutrition, and livelihood. We are talking about a very staple food combination in India, the dal bhat. I am Vibha Varshney and I work on food and biodiversity at the Center for Science and Environment. And to talk about this, we have Professor Pushpesh Pant with us. He is a food historian and has written extensively on Indian cuisine. Welcome to the show, Pushpesh.
Thank you so much.
So we are going to talk about rice and dal combination from West Bengal. So what can you tell us about these?
I would like to begin by saying that when you mention the word Bengal, people think of Mach and Mishti. They think Bengal is nothing more than fish or chena mithai. So for them, some would say that Bengali language is also such a sweet language, etc., etc. They tend to forget that Bengal has a wealth of food, variety of food, which is very interesting. So the combination which we are talking about is dal bhat. So of course, when I was a young kid growing up, people would say, Bengali आदमी मच्छी भात खाता है और इसलिए उसका brain बड़ा तेज होता है. But what about the poor souls who don't eat machi? So then, much later in life, I discovered, actually not much later, in my adolescence, my mother had gone to Shantiniketan and studied there. She would say, no, Bengalis don't always eat machi, they also eat dal bhat. And when she talked of dal bhat, what came to her was this combination which we are going to talk about, Gobindobhog rice and Sona Moong Dal, bhaja Sona Moong Dal to be correct. Interestingly, this rice is something which Bengalis could literally die for. They would not care for basmati and they would create absolutely ecstatic, sublime delights, delicacies out of this rice. Now, to some it might look odd. This rice is smaller, much smaller, 1/4 the size of a well-bred, pedigreed basmati. It is fragrant but far less aromatic. Although I do think that basmati's aroma is overrated. I'm an anti-basmati person, as you can notice by now, because when you cook something like a biryani or a pulao with a basmati, you add saffron, you add green cardamom, you add nutmeg, mace, you have rose water, kevada essence. So many other aromas go into the biryani that the basmati's intrinsic aroma is lost. But this grain of rice is interesting. It is smaller in size, it is flavorful, and it doesn't stay apart, it sticks together. So people would say, oh, lumpy rice. But we tend to forget that the real fun, the real joy of eating rice is home-cooked, steamed or boiled rice, which is lumpy. And you make and what do you do with the basmati? You eat each grain separately. You don't. You ultimately make a morsel out of it. Agar, like the Indian food is to be eaten with your fingers, you make a nivala and put it in your mouth. It is a lumpy kind of thing. Even if you are a very anglicized person is using fork and knife, you push it into a spoon and it is not, each grain is not separate. So what's so great about it is an appearance, and appearances are deceptive. So I think both the qualities of this rice, Gobindobhog, are belie the common misperception that is only the long grain rice, is only the aromatic rice, is only the rice which doesn't stick together is worth eating. But let's get to something even more interesting. Why the name Gobindobhog? So I was curious as a child and I asked my mother, so she said, because it is offered to the Lord, Shri Krishna Govinda. It didn't satisfy me. And I kept thinking that Bengalis are Kali Pujaks, the Shastras, the Ogoma, Kalima, Durga, the Pujo, all takes place like that. So how did the Krishna worship Vaishnav thing went to Bengal, and how did Gobindobhog become? So there were interesting things. They say that the Seths, the people, entrepreneurs, the Marwadis who came from Rajasthan, they were Vaishnavas, or they were Jains, and in their pantheon also, Krishna and his friends had a role to play. So they started the Vaishnavite Krishna worship sect there. And then, of course, you have the Krishna Bhakti Vaishnava tradition in Bengal as well. From Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and it is not as if Bengal did not have the Krishna tradition. And so Gobindobhog was something which was offered as a naivedya to the Lord Govind, the Krishna, and also it was maybe brought there by saints from Rajasthan who worshipped the Pushtimargi Vaishnav thing, and it was called the Gobindobhog. Interestingly, you move across the border. There was a time when the whole Suba of Bengal was one. The Bengal, Orissa, Bihar, including Assam, present-day Nepal states were part of one unit, one geographical unit. So you have again Gobindobhog becoming Vishnu Bhog in Orissa before it becomes in Shri Jagannath Puri's Chappan Bhog Prasad and so on. So there's one part which I think is a fascinating one, because if a rice is worth offering to the god, you are a very fortunate mortal to have it.
Yeah.
The second thing was the scarcity. To begin with, Gobindobhog was grown in a very limited area, Birbhum, Bardhaman, Nadia, Haldia, and this is the more or less the macroclimatic zone where this rice was most flavorful, like the much hyped basmati of Patiala, Amritsar and Dehradun. But then the point is, when the demand grew, it was grown outside this range also. So there would be a slight variation in the taste and the texture and the qualities and the mouthfeel of this rice also. Other thing which fascinates me about this rice is that how many ways the Bengalis use this rice in. They use it, of course, as a steamed rice with
Moong
bhaja,
dal,
sonar,
yeah.
not ordinary moonger dal. Every time we refer to this, we must say bhaja, Sona Moong Dal. Bhaja we'll talk about later, but why is it called Sona? Again, is because it glistens like gold. Now, interesting, it glistens like gold, but like the sibling which is put next to it, the inseparable Siamese twins, this grain is smaller than the ordinary moong's dal which is normally cooked at home. So again, it's the same basmati story. It is not as large as the ordinary moong dal, but this smaller grain is considered to be more valuable. You would say the larger chunk of brass would be less expensive than a smaller chunk of gold. So that's why the name Sona comes. So Sona Moong, and then Sona is something which fascinates, which casts a spell on Bengali mind. Amar Sonar Bengal.
Maybe it's after this.
So maybe it's after this. Of course, yes. Why not? So this actually is a fascinating speculation that Amar Sonar Bengal comes from the Sona bhaja moong. And you look at this. The grain is so much smaller.
So small, yeah.
But it is the most valuable moong dal. And of course, it complements the smaller size of the more expensive rice here. But to get back to rice, khichdi in the rest of India is an old man's diet, a child's diet, an infirm person's diet. But in Bengal, it is a delicacy. For a pujo, in the various pandals during Durga Puja, the khichdi is a fried khichdi, bhuno khichdi, and it is prepared with this rice. There are more anglicized Bhadralok in Calcutta who would have a basanti pulao, and that pulao would be made out of this, not of basmati. Then you would make a pitha, which is a pancake-like thing filled with jaggery and coconut gratings and so on. The same rice would be used. They would call it, they would prepare a payash, which some people would confuse with kheer, but in Bengal, kheer is something different and payash is something different. And this payash would be chena payash, cooked with date palm jaggery, but the rice would remain the same. So if the son-in-law comes home and he has to be fed very well, so the dessert prepared for him will be puli pitha, soaked in milk. And that pitha, the pancake crepe-like thing, would be made out of Gobindobhog. So I think Gobindobhog gives you the whole range of, nobody would of course base this noble rice on jhalmuri. No, not that. But short of that, everything you did, you would be using Gobindobhog instead of any other rice.
But as you said, like this is now very popular. And if you go to any other state also, you get Gobindobhog rice.
No, I would say
is that the same, or are
no,
they?
as I was trying to make a distinction, again, besides Basmati, the other aversion I have is to the linguistically reorganized states. How do you say that this Gobindobhog is not the Odia Vishnu Bhog and not intrinsic to that soil? Of course, it would change. Texture would change according to microclimatic region. But Gobindobhog would remain Gobindobhog, You call a rose by any other name, a rose is a rose is a rose. So Gobindobhog would remain a fragrant, flavorful, mildly sticky rice, good for health. Especially combined with bhaja, sonar, moong dal. They will complement each other very well. When you do the lab analysis, you suddenly realize that like all the rices, commoner rices, not the queen of rice basmati, have better nutrition. They have better nutrition in sense of higher proportion of protein, more vitamin B, more content of the minerals from manganese to zinc to iron, and they sit lightly on your stomach. So this would be a classic case of that also.
So moong is has originated in India.
Yes, of course, it's originated.
So why is this so small? Other places like from North India, I am from North India, and we have a very big moong.
Look.
So why is this so small?
Look, it's like the diversity. Like the biodiversity is not only in grains and seeds, because we are a diversity of genotypes in this country.
Fine.
So this is a particular grain which people generationally time tested found out had a flavor which was nuttier, and when it was dry roasted on a pan bhaja to fry, it acquired a smoky flavor. Combined with the texture of the sticky rice, they blended beautifully and they made a nutritious, self-sufficient meal. I'm very fond of comparing the bhaja Sona Moong Dal with the Varan Bhat in Maharashtra, where is just tur dal boiled with a little ginger paste, touch of red chilies, and maybe salt to taste, and a ghee. And it complements bhat beautifully. So you can taste the dal. I think when you say why is this so small, nobody genetically modified it to become small. But through exposure to the dal grown locally, people discovered that the smaller grain tasted better.
So they selected it.
And over a period of time, probably they also realized that it digests better. It is more nutritious. Those who know their food would stay with this dal and this chawal.
Yeah,
Pardon me, the Bengalis don't have only one dal. They have cholar dal, which they have with coconut, with raisins, sometimes with dates, sometimes khatta mitha, tomato ki chok, sweet and sour chutney kind of thing. They also are very nice eaters of masoor dal. They also eat, cholar dal is Bengal gram dal. But it is not, those dals are not at the same pedestal as this dal is. This is almost an aspirational combination.
Okay, but like they chose the smaller one, is that a small variety available in any other part of the country?
A smaller variety of moong is available in other parts of the country, but I have never known anybody to use a smaller variety and saying there is more flavorful, is more nutritious. Actually, if you go around, I just came back from Gujarat and a friend cooked for me a very nice chilke wali moong ki dal, unhusked, whole, not split, not dhuli hui, not like that. But it tasted wonderful. There was no spices. You could taste the dal. So the problem is that we also are creatures of our childhood. So if you are told that moong ki dal is easy to digest, you would recall moong ki dal ki khichdi, liquefied is supposed to be the best. Moong ki dal as a dalia is a great one. Is Al-Baruni, who's in Kitabul Hind, says that for most people in India, the staple food is a porridge like khichdi of dal, moong dal and rice. You go, you talk of khichdies and talk of sweet khichdies, and in Tamil Nadu you have something like pongal, a sakar pongal, which is moong dal, rice, jeera and jaggery. So why not? So there are other parts of the country where moong dal is valued.
So what are we going to cook out of this? Can you briefly tell us?
We will stay with the simplest version of bhaja Sona Moong Dal. We'll just dry roast them on a pan. And cook it with minimal masalas. We will put in a dash of ginger paste. We will put in some ghee, and if you really like, we will have a pinch of turmeric and salt and red chilies. I would like it without a tadka, but if you insisted on doing that, I would not go beyond a green chili, put in ghee and go into it. जैसी दाल है वो पिसी अदरक के साथ आ जाए और घी उसमें हो तो इतना काफ़ी यथेष्ट। मगर मुझको लगता है भीषण चमत्कार तब तक नहीं होता जब तक उसमें थोड़ा सूखी मिर्च, थोड़ा धनिया गार्निश के लिए ना आ जाए। तो आई थिंक ईच टू हिज ओन,
जो अपना टेस्ट हो।
इट इज़ वेरी नाइस टू हैव द food the way you want to eat it. So if you want to have your bhaja, sonar, moonger dal with a tadka, why not? Temper it with the whole red chili.
रोस्ट करने से वो जो स्टिकीनेस होती है जो कई लोगों को नहीं अच्छी लगती है तो वो हट जाती है।
Also, I think the ratio when you cook rice, it only is experience which tells you कि literally क्या ratio should be between rice grains and the water you boil in. Green to look at.
हाँ।
जायका घी की वजह से भी बहुत अच्छा है।
Thank you Pushpesh ji for talking to us about this Sona Moong Dal and Gobindobhog rice. We will be back again with more dal bhat combinations from across the country. Till then, you can try these at home. Let us know what you think about it, and we will be back soon. Thank you.